We're proud to be Indiana's finest craft spirits brand, plying our trade in the scenic hills of Brown County.
Part distillery, part amusement park. Inspired by an iconic American pioneer who created the ultimate theme park, Walt Disney.
I like to take a new thing and develop something, a new concept.
One of the models we study is Walt Disney himself and the intentionality he had in everything he did, and you still see at Disney. So
how taking a page out of the Disney playbook has helped push Hard Truth Distilling into a Hoosier destination hotspot. Hard Truth founder and partner Jeff McCabe, my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. Jeff McCabe and his partner started in the brew pub business, opening a small 24-seat restaurant in a back alley in Nashville, Indiana. It was such a success, the group decided they would try their hand at distilling. Hard Truth Distilling then came along. Nestled in the hills of Brown County, it's a place which combines spirits and entertainment, an immersive experience like few others in Indiana. And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by the founder and partner at Hard Truth Distilling, Jeff McCabe. Jeff, thanks for joining me.
you bet. It's always a pleasure to get a chance to catch up with you.
Hey, I think this story, it's a story about brewing and distilling, but to me, moreover, it's a story about entrepreneurship and it's really a business story that's fascinating. Let's kind of start at the beginning, because the beginning was beer, right? And
right.
As I understand it, it was just simply a homebrew glass of beer that kind of sparked things. Take us all the way back to that early beginning.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So back in 2008, my partner Ed Ryan and I had started to invest a little bit in some of the commercial real estate here in Brown County in Nashville. And I owned with my son-in-law the Allison House Inn. And Tim, who is one of our partners here at Hard Truth and Big Woods and Quafflon, was homebrewing on the back porch of the Allison House Inn. He started a beer exchange, so the other homebrewers could drop some of their beer off and take some of his. It didn't work out very well, though, because his was always gone, right? I mean, more of his went out than came back in, I guess. But we knew he could make great beer, and we knew that we didn't have a place to drink craft beer in Nashville. So when we had the opportunity to buy that first place of ours, a little 24-seat restaurant in the back alley in Nashville, instead of fixing it up and leasing it out to another entrepreneur, we decided we'd open our own little brew pub.
And how'd that go? I mean, any entrepreneurial venture, there's anxiety, there are nerves. It's going to be accepted. People are going to like it. What do you remember about kind of launching that brew pub?
What I remember was while we have the time and the opportunity to do a lot of the work ourselves to put the first place together. I remember people stopping by and shaking their head and saying, "Why would you put this work into a little place in a back alley?" So a lot of people thought we were a little bit crazy. We were kind of on a lark, but we always thought that it made sense, and that we always thought that people would come, especially in Nashville. It's such a great town, right? And there's so many people every weekend visiting. We thought people would find us. And, to answer your question directly, we opened up on November 11th, and on November 14th, we were sold out of all the beer that we had made for the opening. So
wow.
Tim says it's because we drank a lot of it before the opening, but really, people were great. We had people lined up the first day.
Quafflon, right, is the beer that's now distributed all over the state.
Right, it sure is. And now we're in a position with the beer where folks know us and they have an expectation for what they're going to get from us. And if we're off a few days on the seasonal releases, we get a lot of calls. But it's really fun over time to develop those kind of neural pathways where people have a real expectation for what you're gonna bring to the market. And that's been one of the really fun things to see develop over time.
Well, as you talk about developing, so you developed the beer and a brand, recognized brand in the marketplace, that led ultimately to the distilling piece, which you couldn't do right off, right? As you and I were talking before we started, it used to be in Indiana, you couldn't have both a brewery and a distillery, but that the change in state law really sparked hard truth.
Yeah, the legislature, and I'm happy I'll say this as many times as I get a chance. I feel like Indiana's and the legislature are pro-business, and they're and small business specifically. They're open to opportunities for new businesses and for entrepreneurs. So when that opening came to us, we jumped right through it.
Let's talk about your campus in Brown County, which for folks who haven't been there, it really is amazing. And what I thought was interesting, as I did a little research, kind of the thought process that you and your partners put into it was really based a lot on, of all people, Walt Disney, right?
Yeah, it's true. I guess I'd say the one thing my partners and I have in common, we all think we're lifelong learners, right?
Yep.
And one of the models we study is Walt Disney himself and the intentionality he had in everything he did, and you still see at Disney. So, in fact, I'm sitting in the boardroom right now, and I can look to the left and I can see some of the patent applications for the Disney Castle and that kind of stuff. That the underlying form, right, of how they did it, and that's kind of what we thought about here is, when this 325 acres that we're on became available, we thought, first of all, we loved this piece of property for years before we could get it. And once we had the opportunity, we thought, what could we do that would really complement everything else that's going on in Nashville and Brown County, with the state park virtually across the street and town on the other side of us. We really were kind of inspired by all the elements that come together for a place like, the Disney properties.
Well, talk about your complex and because there's so many elements to it. How would you, to someone, who's never been there, describe the offerings there? Because there's a lot to choose from.
Okay, well, to begin with, we're the same kind of forest and rolling hills, if you will, that you see at a place like Brown County State Park, right? So you've got this beautiful piece of property, mature hardwood forest, and we wanted to start the experience right. So you go through this absolutely beautiful piece of art that's our front gate, and that really reflects the spirit of the big woods on the front gate. And as you come in, one of the first things you see is rack house number 1, which is where we store 6,000 or so barrels of whiskey that are aging right now, right? So immediately you can get a sense of, you'll see a building that doesn't look different than what you might see in Kentucky in terms of, whiskey or bourbon production. And then you get to drive through the woods, and as you drive through the woods, you pop out into a parking lot, and there you see this timber frame tour center that is the first stop. And in the background behind it, a little bit higher up, a higher elevation, you see the distillery, which really is a significant production facility, right? And it's still growing. If you look over to the right, you can see a pond, and you can see the world's smallest floating rack house in it, right? We don't have barrels out in ocean liners like another whiskey producer does, but we do have the smallest floating rack house with 1 barrel on it that's been floating there since the first batch of whiskey we laid down. And good news is we're going to take that barrel off the water this spring, and it's going to be part of our contribution to Farm Aid. So that's going to be really neat.
Yeah.
What so we got? Well, I was just going to mention we've got a really nice outdoor entertainment area. We can bring probably 1,000 people in there. We've got the trails and the ATVs so that you can see you can experience the property, because that's the real business we're in, right? We're in the experience business. And,
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that, the experience and how that ties into the brand. I've got to believe your product certainly is about taste. You want to have something that people like, but what you've developed there and continue to develop that experience, that's in keeping with the brand, I assume.
Yeah, we talk a lot about authenticity, right? I mean, we're real people here with this great support from the community. I mean, we're fortunate we're able to employ a lot of people here in the county, and we're really fortunate that the results of all this hard work have yielded some great products. But I think consumers now, especially in our industry, value the fact that we are authentic, that we do make our own product, that in fact, we're grain to glass, right? We've got farmers in 3 counties who grow corn, wheat, and rye for us here in Indiana. And when you get some Hard Truth Sweet Mash whiskey, you're getting the best that Indiana has to offer, not just what we have to offer.
That's
right?
interesting.
So it's all part.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, the economic impact. As you mentioned, you employ a lot of people there, but you're also buying product from Indiana farms. Talk about that focus, that insistence, and that drive to buy local.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, it's a good economic decision for us to do it, right? But one of the early conversations we had with one of the icons in the whiskey industry was with Bill Samuels down at Maker's Mark. Oh. And after we talked to him, Fred, he very forthcoming, a lot of insights for us. And he said, well, let's talk about your corn, right? You've got great corn in Indiana. You need to have an heirloom seed. You need to make corn part of your story, right? And of course, we had that in mind already, but to hear somebody like that tell us that, and about how, about he approached it in his business, helped us think about that. But, we're in that's what Indiana's about, right? Family farms. And that's our cause marketing sales. We support family farming in Indiana, and to be able to work with people like Doug Miller, who grows our corn, and see that be part of his legacy. He's a 4th generation farmer who actually tells stories about when he delivered corn down to Lawrenceburg for whiskey production.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And now he's grown up, and his grandfather's passed away, and he's doing that with us.
Wow, that is interesting. Is you talk about family? Is the distilling business? You talk about talking to some folks at Maker's Mark. Is it? I know I've talked to a number of brewers. And there's kind of that family type atmosphere. It's competitive, but at the same time, everybody wants everybody to be successful. Does that exist in the distilling business too?
Yeah, I think we've always had great luck talking to other distillers, and we have several who helped us get started and help us really shorten the learning curve. And great juice is great juice, no matter who makes it. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, from a marketing and brand perspective, it's really competitive, right?
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of product out there on the shelves, and new labels showing up every day. So once you've got a great product, you're just part of the way there, because you've got to be able to really market effectively. And
is that the key? I mean, as you talk about that competitive landscape, and as an observer and consumer, certainly, especially bourbons, and you look at the Bourbon Trail, down in Kentucky, and the popularity of whiskey seems to be off the charts. What's key? You mentioned marketing. What, in your view, is really key, kind of staying ahead of the curve?
Well, we're traditionalists who are innovators. Yeah, I know that sounds like 2 competing terms, but we've got, in our case, we've got state-of-the-art equipment that actually is built in Louisville, right out of Vendo. But that state-of-the-art equipment with some computer controls on it really is just a great way to take the traditional methods of producing whiskey and improving on it, right? So we take the best of the old. We do some things. We also take advantage of the newest technology. But in terms of getting back to experience, a lot of folks will go on the Bourbon Trail and they'll try to hit 3 or 4 or 5 distilleries in a day, right? we want people to spend 3 or 4 days here with us, right? So we're a little bit different that way. That was our idea at the initial kind of design of this, was for people to be able to come here and not, 2 or 3 hours be in and out, but be part of the Brown County experience, stay in town for a couple of days, and have enough great things for them to do, whether it's a mixology class or it's, we've got a great restaurant, of course, or go out on the trails and go hiking, right? Or listen to some music. So that was part of the idea for us to kind of differentiate ourselves early. And now you see more, and I think we've talked about this before. We have over 400,000 visitors a year now.
Yeah.
Now you see more of those places in Kentucky are building more into their experience.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that because it has become such a destination. As you mentioned, 400,000 visitors. So truly a destination. So there's economic impact. When you look at the tourism piece, there's real impact there that you're creating.
One of the great parts is we've been able to see more investment in Brown County since we got started. And we've got the Brown County Music Center, which is incredibly successful and is a public private partnership, really. And when they have a great act at the music center, we have a great night here. Yeah. And if we can get those folks to stay overnight or maybe 2 nights, that's good for the shopkeepers in town. It's kind of a virtuous cycle.
Yeah. Much more ahead with Jeff McCabe, the founder and partner, Hard Truth Distilling. We'll talk about big entry into the restaurant business and an expanding part of the business there statewide, and much more when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
Welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week, Jeff McCabe, founder and partner at Hard Truth Distilling, and truly an Indiana entrepreneur doing a lot of big things. And Jeff, you recently had a big thing, as you've described it, as an inflection point for the business, and that's the release of your bourbon. Talk about that. Talk about the bourbon and why it's such an important part of the business plan.
Well, it's interesting. Bourbon takes a little bit longer than rye whiskey. We started releasing our rye whiskey about 2 years ago. And of course, we've made the top 100 American whiskeys list. Esquire magazine and Men's Journal said we've got the best craft rye whiskey in the country.
Wow.
And as late as December this year. And that's all great. But I'd say it's a higher degree of difficulty since it's a smaller market than bourbon is, right? Bourbon, people drink 5 times as much bourbon as rye whiskey. So after 5 years of aging, we finally got whiskey or bourbon ready to bring to market. And we're not just bringing one bourbon, we're bringing 3. We've got a sweet mash bourbon that everybody will really enjoy, but we've also got a wheated bourbon and a 4-grade bourbon. And those are bottled in bond, which, speaks to, you and I talked earlier about authenticity. And one of the things we're really proud of is that we are a grain to glass distiller, and that when you get that bourbon, you're getting the best that Indiana has to offer.
What will this bourbon release, these 3 bourbons, what will it mean for the business? What's the potential?
Well, we expect that we will sell probably as much bourbon in the first 11 months that we release it as we have sold rye whiskey. So it'll double our sales of whiskey. It opens up other markets to us where people just don't drink rye whiskey very much, and more global markets too. It really establishes us as a significant player in whiskey and in bourbon. So
yeah, In terms, Jeff, of distribution, you distribute around the state of Indiana. Do you go outside the state?
Yeah, in the beer business, we can only make enough beer for all the folks in Indiana. So in the beer business, every drop we make gets sold in Indiana. But for spirits, and this was a big difference in the way we approached the business. When we invested in distilling, we decided we were going to become a national brand, and we invested that way. So much bigger investment up front. And we're in 21 states right now.
Wow.
And 4 of the 5 major markets in the country. And we've got a great sales and marketing team that is getting the word out for us. And Southern Glazer is our partner nationally for distribution.
Yeah. What's key? I got to believe that distribution is very important, obviously, but it is probably challenging. What's the key to getting a good distribution network and really getting your product out where you want it to go?
Yeah, it's almost, it's kind of like when you talk about barriers to entry for somebody new coming into a business. Yeah, it's almost like a Chinese firewall for folks to try to figure out the best way to get distributed. Do you try to get out to 10 or 15 states, or do you focus on your home market? That kind of thing. And so there's a real learning curve there. The challenge for the distributors, I think, is a lot of times is they have to make bets, right? Because if they're going to be your distributor, they're selling your product and they've got to make an investment in you. So you've got to give them a reason to do it. We think you have to win at home first. So we've always focused on Indiana first. And, the lion's share of our business is here in Indiana, but we have enough market share and credibility that we can show distributors in other states and national chain accounts and that kind of thing that we have the market presence in our own market that they can make a bet on us.
Let's talk about the restaurant business. Big Woods Brewing has restaurants, as we talked before we started, 10 restaurants now. And I know that's a big investment. Talk about why you're in the restaurant business in a big way. That's not an easy business. That's a tough business. Certainly the restaurant business is. Talk about that.
Well, we're talking in the middle of winter and there's snow falling, right? That's when that business is really tough, right? Yeah. When it's tough to get customers out in the evening to come and visit you. But it always seemed to us that it was a great way to enhance the experience that we're offering with the beer and the spirits, right? Yeah. The restaurants have proved to be that for us. But when you've got one restaurant, you've got challenges with getting the best price for the products that go into what you're selling and that kind of stuff. And when you start to get a little bit of scale, things like that start to get easier. But then you have other challenges like with people. Now, in our case, since we're mostly centrally Indiana, what we've done is we've created an opportunity for people for career growth because we've got those other locations and we've got kind of a management hierarchy so that we can keep good people and develop them over time, which is one of the great parts of all these businesses. When we had a meeting the other day with the restaurant team, and a couple of people leading that group have been with us. I think they were employee number 6 and number 7 way back in the beginning. Yeah. And now they're helping us run a pretty sizable business. So it is challenging. I'd never tell anybody that restaurants are easy, but the other thing I tell them is if you're gonna go into the restaurant business and you're from the creative side, the culinary side, or whatever else, have a great business partner, because restaurants can be a good business if you run them like a business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I know that you've got a restaurant you've had for a number of years now in Speedway, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big restaurant. So you go big, Big Woods. I mean, that's a good sized restaurant.
Well, that's a big, I think that's one of the biggest bets we ever made. And, part of that was back when we did it, Speedway was still in their, redevelopment phase, right?
Right. On Main Street there. Yeah.
Yeah. And those guys on the redevelopment team worked really hard to convince us that they were going to see that through to the end. And we believed them. And of course we got that great spot on the corner at 10th and Main, right? And we took advantage of the opportunity. That's what entrepreneurs do, right? They size up the risk. And if they see the opportunity, they kind of jumped through that.
Yeah, and I know, people, there were doubters to the folks in Speedway about their ability to pull off that whole redevelopment plan. But boy, if you go walk along Main Street there from your restaurant and Foy, there's so many cool places, and it's a totally different place than it was, 5-10 years ago.
It's just a great story that you can't hang that success on one person, right? It's a great story of delayed gratification, right? It takes time to do a turnaround and a change like that. And one of the guys I remember who really convinced us it was going to happen was a very young guy, Ian Nicolini, right? And Ian said, "Jeff, you got to do this. This is going to be great," right? We did, and it's great for everybody. It's great to see Speedway, doing what it's doing now. Yeah.
You talk about the future. We mentioned the bourbon release, which obviously is a milestone for the company. Governor Holcomb was at your campus there not that long ago, as you kind of christened Rack House number 2. Talk about that day, and because I know he had a lot of great things to say about Hard Truth and the impact that it's having on the economy.
Yeah, it's been great to have support from Governor Holcomb and other folks in government here in Indiana. And Governor Holcomb in particular has, he helped us a couple of years before that, came down and signed the Indiana Rye Act, which celebrates the fact that, a lot of the great rye whiskey in the company actually does come from Indiana, right? And what we talked about last time he was down here was about how we're starting to realize that vision, right, of creating that branding that people understand that there's great whiskey coming from right here in Indiana, and a lot of it. And that's the kind of help that is great for everybody who's in this kind of business in Indiana. So talked about that, about expansion, about creating an environment where entrepreneurs can be confident to invest more money. And just like that was Rack House number 2. In the spring, we're actually breaking ground. We've already cleared it for Rack House number 3, and pretty soon, over the next couple of years, we'll have 20,000 or so barrels of product aging in those rack houses.
Wow! How many total employees do you have now across Hard Truth, Big Woods, and all your various entities?
Really depends on the time of year, but north of 600. And there's some seasonality to it, but always north of 600.
What's next? I mean, I'm asking you that. You just had the big bourbon release. You've had so much going on, but as you look going forward, is there a bigger picture out there that you're pursuing?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. One is this year, when I talk with my partners and we talk with our key people on the team, we talk about thinking about things differently this year. We actually say it doesn't cost anything to think differently.
Yep.
Right. So we're really kind of evaluating all parts of our business. But one thing for sure is we're investing more in Indiana than we ever have before. We've got, we're in a great position in the market, but we can do a lot more. And the stronger we are in Indiana, the more it carries through as we go into other markets. So we are investing more in terms of our ability to produce, especially on the spirit side of things. We are looking at opportunities on the restaurant side, but at the same time, a lot of our effort is to get established in key markets like Florida. We're on some cruise ship lines now, which introduces people from all over the world to our product, right? Yep. And we launched in New York mid-year last year, and that's actually been our most successful launch. So now you can go to New York City or Rochester or Syracuse, and you can get Hard Truth products. So that's great.
Jeff McCabe, the founder and the partner at Hard Truth Distilling. Jeff, truly an Indiana success story, fascinating story at how things began and how things have grown so dramatically over the years, and it looks like it will continue to grow as well. So congratulations on that success, and certainly wish you much more success going forward.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. We are a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes, more than 150 strong, and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.